Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. After COVID and the rigged 2020 election, most Americans finally discovered that our government can't be trusted to tell us the truth. We know the media and academia has pushed the left-wing narrative for decades. People are starting to wake up to the truth, but there are lies pushed by academia, print media, and our government that go back much further and distort not just our history, but our current understanding of the Constitution and the founders' intent. These lies, accepted as facts, built upon decades, have had a detrimental impact on government at all levels and have been used to justify and defend the erroneous notion that the federal government was designed to be supreme in all cases and that the states are just lower-level administrators of federal policy. And citizens, instead of giving their consent, are now once again subjects to a tyrannical force. How did this start, and who is responsible for the subversion of our Constitution? While no one person is to blame for all subversion and perversion of our republic, there is one person that did more to put us in this course probably than anyone prior to his day. He destroyed the limited government foundation of our Constitution and started a new one based on huge distortions of the first one. And he took nearly 1 million American lives in a bloody and unnecessary war, erroneously labeled as a civil war. That man is Abraham Lincoln. We were to have Tom DiLorenzo here with us today of the Mises Institute and author of The Real Lincoln. Unfortunately, he is not going to be with us today. We will reschedule him for as soon as possible. I hate that it turned out this way, but that's what we've got. I do want to congratulate my friends in the Lawrence County GOP, Lawrence Sutton, Brandon Taylor, and the members of the Lawrence County GOP for a very successful and very worthwhile Reagan Day event this past Tuesday. It was the best one I've attended, and it included a straw poll between John Rose and the entitled one, that would be Marsha Blackburn, and Rose easily won in deep red Lawrence County. You can watch it posted on our Facebook page at facebook.com/TN-Informer. You find the YouTube link right near the top of the page. Thanks for being with us. Matter of fact, excuse me, let me back up here. I have in the studio with us, or on Zoom with us, we have Lawrence Sutton, the GOP chair of Lawrence County, and Brandon Taylor. And Brandon, you're the treasurer, I think?
Past party chair.
Past party chair, okay, all right. And
yeah, Brandon's not allowed to be in the Republican Party because he's not bona fide.
Okay, yeah.
That was on a different show, Dave.
Yeah, different show.
I just like to bring that up.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I'm glad to have both you guys here. And so, before we talk about Tuesday night and talk about Tennessee politics, I do hope that we are able to get him back, and I know you got a few thoughts on them. I think you're pretty well read on Lincoln, and I know some about him. I learned a lot more after reading this book. I would encourage everybody to read this book, The Real Lincoln, by Tom DiLorenzo, and the foreword is by Walter E. Williams. He's an economics professor at George Mason University, and if you're a conservative, you probably have heard of Walter Williams. But this book has a lot of details that explains that the Lincoln that we're presented was not the real Lincoln, okay? And then we really, really did not have to have that war. And I believe that from other things I've read, and I think this kind of cinched it. So I hope to get him back on. But I know you read history as well. Lawrence, you got any comments on that? Any thoughts?
Well, the thing is, when we went to school, Lincoln was made out as this hero that saved the United States. And, a lot of that is just not true. When you really get to, I will say this, unfortunately with public schools, the best education that I think anybody, especially in a public school system, can get is self-education. Yep. You've got to want to go and get self-education and not what is stuffed down your throat, because they are not stuffing ice cream down your throat when they're giving you an agenda. Yep. Unfortunately. And I look at Lincoln, and what a lot of people don't realize is that Lincoln he tried to coddle the South and even told the South that, and there's letters. So what I'm saying is, don't just believe what Lawrence says or this book says or Dave or Brandon says. There's letters that Lincoln had wrote where he said that he would even allow the southern states to keep the slaves,
Right.
but they wanted more economic control over the South because at the time, most of the industry and most of the money was coming through the southern parts of the United States. It was not coming through the North. And there was a huge discrepancy of tax income that was being generated. And frankly, the South it was about states' rights more so than it was ever about slavery.
Right. And a lot of people will say, well, states' rights is just cover for slavery, but that's not the case. You know, from early on, there's always been these two kind of different views of the country. You had those that wanted, they called them internal improvements, but think big government. You know, the tariffs, and they didn't have an income tax until the Civil War. They had these tariffs, and a disproportionate amount of the tariffs were generated by the South, but spent in the North. And that was a problem. And they just had a different philosophy. Both areas had an overall, not completely, but a different philosophy on what the role of the federal government was. You know, the South was more in line with the founding in terms of limited federal governments. You do those things that are in Article 1, Section 8, and, you know, everything else is a state responsibility. But that didn't really jive with what the people who wanted the so-called internal improvements were looking for.
So if you really want to see how badly people were treated, and don't get me wrong, I mean, what happened with slavery, I mean, it needed to be gone. We did not need slavery. But if you look at how, when we had the potato famine in Ireland and all of the Irish were fleeing Ireland and coming over to America during that time period, and how those people were treated. Those people were probably treated in these factories and stuff in the North worse than what slaves were being treated. When you look at the history and you read of it, unfortunately, the history that we read, history is written by the winners. History is never written by the losers.
Right.
And there's a saying that my dad had. My dad said that there is two sides to every story, and the truth is typically somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But unfortunately, the history that we are given is the history from the winning side, the winning solution.
Yeah, and they definitely have an agenda. So anyway, but
yes, sir.
I hope to have him on as soon as possible, and I want to go back over this book. But now I want to talk about Tuesday night. That was a great event, and you guys did that, what, in 90 days?
Yeah, 90 days. Yeah. And actually, you know what was funny, you know, because we're just two dumb rednecks, we don't know any different. We thought 90 days was plenty of time to pull off this event. And in reality, because of my CEC that I have, and Brandon being past party chair is part of this RCEC.
Right.
We were able to pull this off, and it was brilliant. And I just want to say real quick, you know, my vice chair, Effie Carroll, my secretary, Chris Stutz, who's also the chairman of the supervisor of the election commission, is my secretary. My treasurer is a great woman of God by the name of Cindy Clark, and the co-treasurer, same, Tammy Wisdom. You know, without their help and the dedication of the Lawrence County Republican Party, we never could have pulled this off. Right. So it wasn't just a one or two person event. It was everybody getting behind us and seeing the vision. I mean, and the vision came true. I will say this. I do want to say this, and I want to lay down the gauntlet because Brandon and we were told, wow, this was a great event. This was a great event. You will never be able to top this event. I mean, this is being told to us.
Right.
And I'm sitting there looking, and me and Brandon, we talked about this. We're like, okay, we pulled this off in 30 days. We have a year now. You don't think we're going to get better thinking about this over a year when we pulled this off not knowing what we're doing? Yeah, okay, game on.
That's a good point. So now the venue was nice. The venue was the Keystone Resort.
Yes.
Keystone Resort. There was a movie filmed there recently. Very nice place. And you had what, about 300 people? Over 300?
310, I think, around 310, I believe.
Okay, and here's the thing: it wasn't, obviously it was not just Lawrence County. I mean, you had people from Murray County. I know I'm the only one from Stewart County there, but you had people from Williamson County, a lot of I mean, it was a good turnout. Granted,
Wayne County.
Yeah, Wayne. Granted, you had
Dixon County. We had Jody Barrett.
Yeah.
Our friend Jody Barrett.
Yeah. So
came all the way over from Dixon County.
Right, and probably a lot of that pull was from the gubernatorial candidates. But like you say, Jody was there. We had Monty Fritz. You had Scott Desjardins. You had the challenger he's going to have in 2026, Tom Davis, and several other. You had local county officials. You guys kind of gave a chance for the whole county elected officials to speak, and that was good. Monty, even though he's not announced that he's in the governor's race, he will probably make that decision one way or the other really soon. I think he gave one of the best speeches of the night. It's not a long speech, and anybody that's interested, on our website, if you click on the link, he starts at about the 48 minute mark, and it's just a few minutes, but it's an excellent speech. Tom Davis did a great job in terms of, talk about calling somebody out. Let's talk about that a little bit. He's going to run against Desjardins next year. And he just laid it out. He's like, you don't do town halls, and you vote for CRs. And there was something else that he said. I think maybe all the spending. I think that was one of his issues.
Yeah, he talked about the spending, yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's just up front. And I thought that was great.
Well, I tell you what was funny. I'm going to have to brag on my buddy real quick. The party chair in Lewis County is a gentleman by the name of Houston Hamlin, okay. And I think you heard me say at the end of the speech, and unfortunately it wasn't caught on the video, that when Jody Barrett, if he wins the 4th district,
7th district,
yes. Or 7th district, I'm sorry, we're the 4th district. Yeah. The 7th district, if he wins that, then he needs to get behind Houston Hamlin and get Houston elected to his spot, to take over. And Houston was actually texting me when Tom Davis was speaking, and he said, "Who is this gentleman that's speaking?" And I said, "Tom Davis, he's going to run against Scott Desjardins." And Houston is a pastor, a good family man of God, and you never would have expected this, but Houston texted me back and said, "That guy's got big balls."
But I did like how upfront he was. I mean, he didn't do the usual political speak. He said, "You don't show up for town halls, and you vote for CRs, and you're spending all this money." It's just, like one of us who are not, that we know we're not going to run for office, that's how we would, say something to some of these guys. But he's running for office, and he put it out there.
And to set it up a little bit, Dave, one part we don't want to leave out is the fact that while he was saying this, of course, Scott Desjardins was sitting at the first table approximately 12 feet from him. So,
absolutely, yeah.
And the rest of the room is watching. 300 people are watching this happen. So I'm trying to set this up for your listeners so they realize what the setting was. Yeah. It wasn't like he was speaking to somebody while he was at the bathroom. It's like, no, he was literally looking him in the eye while he was saying it.
Yeah, not just in the same building, not going to show up later, not have already left. He was right there. So if nothing else, you got to respect that. And I just
and I would love to see a debate between the two of them.
Right.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, and this is chairman of Lawrence County, Lawrence Sutton, putting his chairman hat on. I would love to see a debate between the two of them to get their ideas out there, because there are some people that does have problems with Scott Desjardins, but for the most part, we agree with probably 90 or 95% of the stuff that he votes on at the end of the day.
Right.
It's just the 5 or 10% that we don't agree with that we're pulling out and showing, hey, we don't like this.
Yeah.
So I would love to get a debate between the two of them if Scott would be willing to do it.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of having some backbone, you did something that I'm glad you did. Okay.
Was you expect anything less?
No, not really, but it was great because, the entitled one, Marsha Blackburn, has already come out and, she said that she wasn't going to, no need to debate. She's so far ahead in the race, there's no need to debate. And you, on stage in front of everybody, said, hey, we want you and Rose to debate in Lawrence County during the primary.
Yeah, town hall debate. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I don't remember what their response was. I'm assuming I didn't actually hear their response. I know Rose already wanted a debate, so I'm sure he was fine with that. I couldn't see Marsha's face from there, but I'm sure you could.
Well, I will tell you this, and Brandon's wife, Rebecca, was there, and Brandon will tell you, in the green room, I went up to Marsha and asked Marsha would she be willing to do a town hall debate. And she was very uncomfortable, but she finally said yes. Now, I don't know what that would entail, if she did it, if she even exactly understand what I was telling her, because she's getting ready for her speech and stuff.
Right.
But I don't mind, because to me, I don't care if you're way ahead in the polls or not. If you are generally the best I want the best person for this state to be our next governor. And I'm just going to tell you, if it's Marsha, great. If it's John Rose, great, or Monty Fritz, whoever it may be, I want the best person. And a lot of times, Dave, if we're going to hide behind somebody else, or we're going to hide and say, no, I'm not going to debate because I'm so far ahead, I'm just going to tell you, it does not bode well, in my opinion, for our constituents and the people of Tennessee.
Right.
Because we need these ideas out there. And I'm going to tell you the most important thing that we need, Dave, is when these candidates make promises, they need to keep their promises.
Absolutely.
And that's where we're failing. This is where we're failing, not only as party chairman, but we're failing as Republicans across the board. And Brandon and I will say we're as guilty as anybody, is holding these people accountable when they do not do what they say, especially when it's to the detriment of the people of Tennessee.
Absolutely. And I think she's going to be forced to debate eventually. Number one, I didn't believe the poll that was put out just so happened to be the day before she entered the race. She didn't fare as well in your straw poll there that you guys had set up. Now that was 100, and I understand a small sample, and you could get different results at different Reagan Day events. I got that. But I think out of 160 or 170,
it was 176.
Okay.
John got
107.
107.
Right.
She got 62, and then we had like 6 or 7 write-ins.
Yeah, I did a write-in. So
yeah, can I explain how we did the poll?
Sure,
real
absolutely,
quick?
Absolutely.
Because I want people to understand how this poll was actually done.
Yep.
In order to be able to vote in our poll, you had to have a ticket.
Right.
You had to have a ticket either because you bought the ticket yourself or your table. It was bought because of your table.
Right.
Now, I will also say this: John Rose campaign and the Marsha Blackburn campaign, they were within 2 seats of each other, having the same amount of people. Okay, so I want to put that into play.
Okay.
All right. So the other thing is if you did not have a seat, then you could not vote. So staffers from either campaign were not allowed to come in, and they were not allowed to vote. If their name was not on there, they weren't allowed to vote. The only thing that could ever happen that anybody could say was look bad at all. Okay, I'm going to put it out there because I've already heard some things, and frankly, if you're going to sully Lawrence County, then I'm going to call you out on it. We were working 14, 16-hour days leading up to this event, trying to make this event what it was. On Monday evening, I got an email like at 5 o'clock before our event Tuesday, where the John Rose campaign wanted to change out 3 people because 3 people couldn't make it. So I didn't see it. I don't check email very often. And so at the event, I had to change 3 people out for them at the table as they were coming in. But the John Rose campaign had to show me where those 3 people weren't there, right, and those other 3 people were there to take the tickets. They paid for the tickets.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So that was the only thing. But if you were not over the age of 18, then you had a ticket. If you're over the age of 18, you had a ticket, and your name was on the list. That's the only way people could vote. And we had the election supervisor looking it over with a AccuVote machine.
An actual machine.
And then my vice chair, Effie Carroll, and her husband, if their name was not on that list, they could not go and vote. Now, we had over 300 people. You're thinking, well, why do we only have 176, 77? How many ever voted? I'm going to tell you something. It was a madhouse to get to that machine to vote because we started and opened it up at 4:30 to a meet and greet, which everybody, if they had a ticket, no matter who it was, could attend. We excluded nobody to the meet and greet. And I will give Marsha Blackburn, Scott Desjardins, and John Rose credit. They were all there early and at least an hour ahead of time, and they mingled with people and took questions and were there.
Right.
So I do want to point that out to all 3 of them. And I was very impressed with all 3 of them and how they handled themselves and how they were mingling with other people.
Yeah.
But to get back to the voting, I really want this pointed out, is that it was checked off, your name.
Oh, I went through the line. So, yeah, I saw all that. I can attest to that. Yeah. It was...
yeah, you've seen the lines. I mean, there was lines. Yeah. And at 6 o'clock, unfortunately, if you were not in line at 6 o'clock, we closed the polls.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because we had to get started.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to go on ramble that much.
And I want to put something out there, Uncle Dave. I like calling you Uncle Dave. Hope you don't mind. But I want to put something on that. I actually went to both campaigns and talked to them personally before we revealed the results. And I was just about to go onto the stage and give the results. I had them in my pocket. And I asked them, is there anything that we could have done with this straw poll to make it better? Both sides were absolutely satisfied. Both sides actually had poll watchers there, and they were standing there watching the entire process. And so I did that because they didn't know the results, and I didn't want either side being able to come back later and say, no, we didn't like this or we didn't like that or something was handled inappropriately.
Right.
So both sides have told me they were satisfied with the results before I announced, or satisfied with the way the polling was handled before I announced the results. So I just want to be clear with that, that we did do that. So if they're not satisfied now, I'm wondering why they're not satisfied.
Yeah. Well, probably depends on what end of that poll you were on. But
and I want to challenge other county parties that are going to do straw polls. You need to be responsible with how you do this. I mean, you need to. This is a serious thing that you're taking on. You could damage someone's campaign. You need to be very responsible with how you conduct your straw polls. And if you're not doing it with a list of people and marking their names off, making sure no one's double voting, it's amazing. We won't close primaries, but yet then we do straw polls and they're a disaster. So
we're going to talk about.
And I'll tell you, our success. This we will be doing more straw polls. Let me go ahead and put that out there. We are working to do a lot more in this field, so we're excited about our plans.
We'll talk more about primaries here in a minute. One other thing, you polled not only the choice between Rose and Blackburn, but you also asked about party registration. Closing the primaries. And John Rose was certainly before this poll opposed to closing the primaries, and that's a problem.
So the closing the primaries, I got the results, and it was massive, the difference in the results on there. So 135 out of 169 voted to close the primaries. So 135 to 34 voted to close the primaries.
Yep.
And Dave, I will tell you that is a absolute, I don't care what poll you're doing, that is an absolute drop dead. This is what the people, not only of Lawrence County wants, but I'm going to tell you something. If we polled this, and Brandon and I are talking about this because we have state legislators that are not doing their job. I'm sorry I'm getting mad about this, but they are not doing their job in getting these primaries closed when the people of Tennessee want this.
Yep. And closing the primaries, for anybody that may not know, is just whatever. For instance, the GOP, you have to be in the GOP to vote in the GOP primary. You have to prove that you're a member. That's why we want party registration. Right now, a Democrat can come in during the Republican primary, and now he's not supposed to, and there is a law, but there's no way to verify because we don't have party registration. You can show up and you can vote in a primary, and that's what happens, because that's why we end up with all these weak Republicans, because they get the crossover vote from the Democrats, or the Democrats vote for, in some cases in a primary, they'll vote for somebody that, okay, this guy will be easier for us to beat in the general. And until we have party registration and close it, we're going to keep getting that.
You're 100% correct. And one of the things I would like to point out to your listeners, Dave, is if they don't think this is a big deal, go look at your last election cycles and look at your commissioners and look at different ones that were elected in these small little precincts around the state of Tennessee in smaller counties where it was within, single digits. We had a school board that was actually, a school board won by 2 votes
in a primary.
So 2 votes. Now, all that takes is just a couple of people crossing over and throwing your election. It's not like we're talking, they're like, well, it doesn't happen very much. Okay, well, it doesn't happen very much, but how many elections do you have? We've had 2 or 3 election cycles in our county, in Lawrence County, if you look back over voter history, where we've had in our primaries just 2 or 3 votes was the only difference in school board members, county commissioners, and different things like that. And if we think people aren't crossing over 2 or 3 in each precinct, then I challenge someone's taking this seriously if they don't question it.
We had our sheriff, John Myers, the first time he ran, I think he won his primary by less than 100 votes.
Okay. I mean, so it gets down to just a few digits. But that's the argument you'll hear from a lot of elected officials and state reps. They'll say, well, it doesn't happen very much. But when you start looking at the real numbers, if it is happening, then it's just enough to throw a lot of elections.
Yeah. And I want to spend probably most of the rest of the evening, if possible, talking about this. But before I do, there's something I wanted to point out from that night. Marsha Blackburn made the comment, and I agree with this comment, and I liked it, but as far as, she said, Trump is returning power to the states. And she said, and it should have never been with the feds. Well, she's absolutely right. Okay, but the state is complicit in that. They gave up their power. They allowed the federal government to take power. They allowed, in a lot of cases, the federal government to bribe them with their own money. Okay, so that's the problem. And the other thing of that is her and a lot of those people have been up there a long time. Desjardins has been up there a good while. Rose has been up there a few years. And any of the long-term, they have been there while the federal government was taking power and doing things that it did not have the authority to do. And they've all been part of that. And I think that's part of the thing, especially with Marsha, because she's been up there the longest. Is, you've been part of the problem.
Well, they've been passing legislation that's 1,000 pages long.
That you can't read.
Full of all kinds of garbage, and they don't even know what they're voting on. We need to slow down how many laws are being passed in this country and enforce the laws that we have. So there comes a point to where we have to reach a breaking point and say, you know what, we've had enough. Every law that's taken away our freedom, and I say this to our people a lot in our county, in our area. I say, a difference between a good law and a bad law. How do you identify that? A good law is protecting your rights and your freedom, and a bad law is taking them away. That's the way you have to look. Our laws should be protecting that. So we have a slew of legislation being passed in the state and in the federal government that you can't keep up with it. We're trying to watch it, and we're trying to assign people to this task. And it's hard for us to keep up with it. So much so, and I'm going to pitch this one out there for your listeners as well. We're working on getting our state reps and our state senator to do an event with us right at the end of this year, right towards middle of December, and we want to hear what legislation they're going to be proposing in the upcoming session. And I'd like to see a lot of our counties get together and start asking our legislators, we want to see your laws and we want to review them. And we're going to have to bring this thing back home and break it down. How do you eat an elephant? You eat it in bite-sized pieces. So we all need to be watching what's going on and what our legislators are
That's a good idea. The only thing I would say is the legislature, the leaders, they start meeting in like October, November. They start setting their agenda for the upcoming session in October, November. So by the time we get to December, they've already decided, the so-called powers that be have already decided what they're going to push. Now, the bills aren't filed. But I'm telling you, they get together in October, November, and kind of set their agenda. So, and granted,
well, that's the reason we want to wait until December to see what kind of crap that they're trying to throw out
well,
there.
my thought was we get to them before. I mean, take what we want to them before, and it's maybe too late. Maybe too late to do that this year, but not in all cases. We need to get to them before they meet in October, November, and say, we want this. And it is more effective, like you say, if we're doing it as county GOPs, especially have numerous county GOPs sign off on, hey, we want A, B, C, and D. And we don't want these others.
The Tennessee GOP should be spearheading this. This is a task that should be done by the Tennessee GOP. They should be spearheading this task, and I'm pushing my thumb in their back to get them to do this. And if they get upset with me for saying it, I'm sorry. I know these folks are volunteers, but they still can put together committees. We need to be doing this on the state level through our Republican Party. The Republican Party is nothing more than a tool that we use to get people elected. It is a tool structure. And so we need to be utilizing that, and we need to be watching the legislation before it comes through. We've been caught, all of us. Dave, you've sat with us in committees. We've sat there together because we're trying to stop something right before it hits its target. We're trying to stop the bullet. Yeah. And we should be not ever getting things loaded into the gun so it could be fired down range. And so we are getting in the game too late.
Right.
And so that's one of the big things we've been working on. And another thing we want to do, Dave, and I'm sorry, I may be pulling you off your topic. I apologize. But
no, you're fine.
We want to get our county, our chairman from all the counties. We need to start getting together and learn each other. And it's time for rural counties to start getting to know each other, because we can counterweight the blue counties. There's a lot of counties just like where you live, and we join together with Middle Tennessee. And I know we've got a couple of 3 large blue counties, but we have the strength in numbers. But our problem is we don't have the unity, and we don't know each other, and we can't form together and get things done quickly. So we are going to have to tear down some of those walls of not knowing each other. I'm meeting great people. I'm also, to your listeners, hey, put our phone number out there. They can call us. If they don't like us, then my name's Lawrence Sutton. And but really, I mean, we've got to get to know each other, Dave, because we're waiting too late to get into the fight. We've already been punched before we start trying to swing. And so we're working on some of those things, and your show has been a big part of that. And what you're doing, you're right in the fight with us. And I just want to be encouraging to those other county party chairmen that maybe they're small parties, but 4, 5, 6 small parties can overthrow a large party in some of these blue counties. And that's what we just got to get to work. That's all we got to do.
Look at the influence that you've given us, Dave. I mean, we're really using Uncle Dave as a term of endearment because, when we first started getting involved, really wasn't until 2022. And then 2023, we kind of took over the Lawrence County Republican Party, Brandon and I. And Brandon always likes to tell the story. He took me kicking and screaming. Well, I'm still screaming.
He was kicking and screaming when I met him.
But the amount of influence that you have had, and you've been such a great mentor to us, Dave. And we need to spread that out, among these other counties, because what's happening in Lawrence County is a direct reflection of the amount of time and patience that you've spent with us and helping to educate us on state issues and things. I just want to say that. I mean,
well, I appreciate that.
I know you get embarrassed and you don't want me to call you out, but it's true. And you're just so important to this state and what you have done for this state that people will never realize.
Well, I appreciate that. But we're going to move on to the next topic, but I do appreciate that. and you guys are doing great things in Lawrence County. I mean, you guys, I think the other night you said rowdy Republicans. Well, you guys are rowdy and effective. So that's good. Now, on the primaries. So one of the problems we've had is getting our state, they don't want to close the primaries. They don't want party registration because a lot of the weak Republicans we have, they are counting on Democrat crossover vote. We get a lot of that. And the other thing, but they passed this legislation this past year that even though they don't want to close the primaries, they actually want to have more primaries. They passed this law that the county parties, it used to be, and this is just for county elections. It doesn't have anything with state elections, but just for county elections, to include judicial elections. That, okay, it's always in the past been a county's choice. Are we going to do a primary? Are we going to do a caucus? Now, a lot of them have done primaries, some of them have done caucus, but it should be the county party's decision. And I mean, the party is supposed to be a private entity. That's what it's supposed to be.
So I'll tell you what Jack Johnson and Lee Reeves did. The Republican Party really is no different than a Kiwanis Club or any other type of club. And they have come out and they're using legislation to try to tell us who we can pick to run. So when you are in a primary, a Republican primary, it is the Republican or the Democrats to choose who they want to put up to have the general population to vote. Okay?
Since they won't close the primary. They won't close the primary, but they want more primaries.
That's right.
Right.
But the caucusing is a good tool, especially for counties that do not have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of candidates running, so they can caucus without costing thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to run an election. And that's one thing that they did. They actually took money, like $8 million out of the Dam Now project in Columbia.
That's the Duck River project?
In order to fund.
Was that the Duck River project?
The Duck River project, you're right.
Yeah, they did, but remember now, when this thing was going through committee, this bill that they passed that no longer left the decision of a county to whether or not have a caucus or have a primary, the law that they passed said, well, okay, if you had a caucus in 22 or 24, then you can have another one. Otherwise, you have to do a primary. Well, during the process of going through committee, there was no fiscal note on the bill. Okay, normally
if
a bill
it was
has
brought in at the end.
After the fact, because counties started saying, hey, wait a minute, this is not a presidential election year. In a presidential election year, the county primaries are covered, okay?
Right.
If it's not a presidential election year, then the county, and for instance, Stewart County, small county, we had to pay like $26,000 to do a primary, and which is why we didn't do one in the past, unless it was an election year. We did do one in 24. We did not do one prior to that. So they stopped us from being able to do that. So we're going to have more primaries because they wanted primaries because they sell it as, well, you have more people involved. If it's a caucus, it's, a backroom a smoky backroom deal and fewer people. Well, guess what? Those fewer people in this private party have a better clue about the candidates. In the primaries, you got a lot of people that vote in Republican primaries. They only, name recognition is what motivates them, and that's about it.
So I will tell you this, Dave, and this is my personal opinion on primary caucusing. Really and truly, I will tell you, I'm not for caucusing with us having open primaries like we do currently. And you have a decision set upon when somebody can come in and vote in a caucus type situation based upon what they call this bona fide. Okay. There's a lot of people that are waking up and we're late to the game. We were late to the game, Dave, but I mean, you know us enough by now. We are very conservative Republicans.
Right.
But what this has done is it has taken away a right that we had as county parties to decide, do we want a caucus or we want a primary?
Right.
And I don't like have any rights taking away from me.
Right, and it's supposed to be a private party, so it should be our decision.
You lose a freedom, it's a bad law.
Now,
that's correct.
You lose a freedom, it's a bad law.
I'm going to tell you this. the bona fide thing, and I know you guys don't like this, but I understand the concept for the bona fide deal, okay? I've been watching the SEC for years. Now, there was a time in the past, you know, it took us a long time to get the SEC to say, yes, we should close the primaries. And when they first did it was the first year Bill Lee was in office. And it was funny because in the past, the legislature used to say, well, if you get the SEC to close the primaries, we'll vote to close the primaries. That was the story. Well, first year Bill Lee gets in office, and at this time, Glenn Casada is still the Speaker of the House. The SEC says, let's close the primaries. They wouldn't do it. Lee didn't want it. They didn't do it, okay? Now, that's caused a lot of problems. And the SEC, even though the SEC has a lot more, believe it or not, because I've watched this for a while, they have a lot more conservative people in it now than they used to. They're still not a ruling majority. They have passed some things, some good things that I've been surprised about. And so there are some good people. But the reason they have the whole bona fide thing is to keep Democrats out. That's the intent. Unfortunately.
But it doesn't, Dave.
Well, let me clarify that.
Okay.
Here's the thing. It depends on the counties. They don't enforce this uniformly across the board is the problem. They pass a thing that says, here's the statute, but or here's the rules, but then they allow those counties, in some cases, and this is from everything I understand, not to necessarily uphold the rules. So you may have this district over here that plays it straight down. Hey, you have not voted in the last 3 out of 4, so you're not qualified to run for this position. Then other counties, they water that down. And that's what hurts them. Now, here's what else hurts them. 2020, and I think you guys were paying attention then somewhat. In 2020, okay, in 2020, they had a guy from Knox County, Eddie Manis, known Democrat, known homosexual, Trump-hating Democrat, okay? And they had a bona fide Republican in that district. And there were people who, at the time, you could vouch, basically saying, okay, this person's a good Republican, or this person is what we want, okay? And guess who vouched for this person? Now, when I tell you this is over the objections of the SEC at the time. The SEC voted against this, but at this time, the final decision maker in these cases was the SEC chair, which at the time was Scott Golden. So Eddie Manis was recommended to be allowed to run for this position by Bill Haslam, former governor,
Glenn Jacobs,
Richard Briggs, Senator Briggs, Jeremy Faison, and Tim Burchett. Okay, speaking of Tim Burchett, now Burchett's got his good points, but you know what? He supported this guy. He also told us, hey, you know, those Gazan refugees would fit in right here in Tennessee. He said that just a couple months ago, all right? And now he tells us Marsh is the best thing for Tennessee. I'm not quite sure which one of those three is the worst, but all the same. So keep in mind, Burchett's kind of like Trump. He's great in some things, but he sucks on endorsements, all right? I'll just leave it at that. But they changed the rules after that. After they're like, you know what? The SEC said no. The chairman at the longer has the authority because the SEC said that's BS. He should not have that much authority to make a call like that. So they have done some things. The problem is things are not consistent across the board. That is the problem with the SEC. Is this SEC over here, this district, they want to cheat. This one over here, they want to play hardball. You got to be on the same sheet. You got to play hardball. And I understand your point. This person's more conservative. This person is a good Republican. And I understand that you can have voted for Republican for 10 years and not be worth a damn because we got a bunch of them up in the legislature right now. We got a bunch of them that have always voted Republican. They ain't never been worth a damn. Okay? But I understand the reason for it having some way to determine, okay, this person has to vote X number of times in order for us. And it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee. There are people that may have met that or not met that standard, like you guys earlier, but you're more conservative and more of a Republican than other people who are in elected office. That's just a fact. But the intent is to have some kind of standard. So I understand it. I understand, especially when we have open primaries, that undercuts it right there.
It was a ban. Well, that's what it was. It was a Band-Aid on a bullet wound because of the open primary. If you closed the primary, this would be
absolutely
irrelevant.
Yeah, moot point.
And so the SEC is trying to legislate, which is not their role.
Well, now wait a minute.
The SEC should be let me finish my thought. The SEC, we should be pushing the legislators to get these polls closed or these primaries closed. That's where we come in as a party. We can't come in on the backside of this and change our bylaws to get around the fact that we've got legislation that's absolutely a disaster.
Well, I'll take a little different view. If we're a private party, the legislature should have not a thing to say about how we select our candidates in the primary. And oh, by the way,
but yet it's happening. It's happening.
I'm just saying that that's when we say we want the legislature to fix it, we can't want the legislature to fix it and us still be a private party. We got to go one or the other, in my opinion. And I know we're not there yet, but you know.
So basically, you're telling me we can ignore what Jack Johnson Lee Reeves did.
No, what I'm saying is I don't understand why the legislature even has any oversight of what's supposed to be a private party.
Well, they shouldn't. The private party should actually have they should actually be in control of who they put up that's in that legislation right now. So if it's a Democrat, then the Democrat Party should have control over that Democrat. Same with the Republican. The Republican should have control the party of that person that they have brought in to represent them.
Okay. I think we talked about this before. Back to this bill. Like I say, the state GOP does not want to close the primaries, yet they want to have more primaries. They want to tell the county parties how to do their business. Well, you didn't do a primary and or a caucus in 22 or 24, so therefore you can only do a primary from here on out. I saw on a clip Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House. He was in East Tennessee recently, and somebody brought up this issue. And he said, well, all we really did was, if you were doing primaries or if you were doing caucuses, we grandfathered you into what you were doing. Well, that's not exactly accurate because, as I said, the bill that they passed, Reeves and Johnson, that sponsored it, it depended on what you did in 22 and 24. It's not totally your call anymore how you do it.
No.
Secondly, he brought up the issue of the 800 million or 8 million, whatever. Yeah, 8 million was brought up. Oh, well, no, it didn't really cost anything. But it did cost something because, like we said a minute ago, it went all the way through the committees with no fiscal note, and then voila, at the end, they take some money out of the Duck River Fund or whatever and fund the primaries. So we got the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is just up there making stuff up. And that's sad. That is sad that that's what we've got.
I'll tell you this, Dave, and I'm not defending or even contradicting what you just said about Sexton. But I'm going to tell you what one of the biggest problems that we have in not only Tennessee, but in the United States. We have too many bills. We have too many laws. I don't even see how these people can keep straight or keep track of all this.
They can't.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Yep. I mean, we have 1,500 at least new laws each year in the Tennessee that are put up there. And like Brandon said, most of these, if they're taken away, you're right, they need to go.
Yep.
We don't need that. As a matter of fact, I would like to see legislators, instead of saying, look at the bills that I've brought up, I'd like to see legislators look at all of these bills that were passed that we're taking away now.
Yeah. No, you still have to do legislation either way, but I think they should be working on repealing a lot of
it. That's what I'm trying to say. Yep. We need these guys repealing laws, not making more laws.
Yep. Absolutely.
I want to put a couple things in on the fact where the SEC changed some of the rules and also what we see with Tennessee legislature and the caucus legislation they put out. I don't like to see the retroactive thing. So, like the SEC wants to change a rule on how you voted and if you can be vouched for and different things like that. That should be moving forward. You can't look back. You can't turn the clock back and say, for whatever you did in the past, we're not going to let you be vouched for. You can say, from this point forward, and even Tennessee coming out and going, well, we passed a law to where if you didn't caucus last time, you can't caucus anymore. They could have passed. It could have been better language and said, moving forward, this is how we're going to approach the caucus, and this is how we're going to approach the primary. I just find so much fault in this, the way they want to come up with their own rules and things. And I don't, Dave, I'm kind of upset with what I see going on with the primaries in our election system in the state of Tennessee. I'm really disgusted with it because I don't know why we're having so much trouble getting our state legislators to have this conversation and to talk about closing the primaries. I don't understand it. No one can explain it to me, but somewhere, I don't know where it's at, but if I find out, I'm going to call you and get on your show. I'll say, Uncle Dave, I found it. Here's the reason, because no one can tell me.
Well, I can tell you the reason
why we're having this.
I can tell you the reason they don't want to close it. A lot of these people rely on Democrat crossover vote. That's exactly why they want to keep the primaries open. They rely on that.
And these are the same people that are telling you that there aren't any crossover votes, aren't they, Dave?
Oh, pretty much the same people. Or if there is, it's just a little bit here and there. Oh, well, it is against the law. You can't do it. Okay, but there's it's like most, the T in Tennessee laws, for the most part, stands for toothless. Okay, Tennessee's got all these laws that they don't enforce.
How can they legislate somebody's thoughts? And here's why I say that. There is thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of true Democrat, blue-haired Democrats that are bona fide Republicans because they have nowhere else to vote except Republican primaries, and they are making these decisions. I don't care what anybody says. I've looked at some voter rolls, and I'm telling you that this is happening. And it's in the thousands. Oh. Okay, so now I hear what you're saying. They say, well, it's against the law for them to cross over and vote, but
there's no enforcement mechanism.
You're legislating people's thoughts. That's what you're doing. You're trying to legislate a thought instead of getting them, instead of being on the fence. I know you're looking at me, huh? What do you mean legislating thoughts? Well, okay, so let's say somebody's been voting Democrat their entire life, and then they go this time and they vote as a Republican. Supposedly, then that is against the law. But are you saying because we don't have closed primaries, so are you saying maybe they woke up and they saw the light that day? Maybe they got saved. Maybe Jesus got a hold of their heart and they realized that they could not vote Democrat anymore because they couldn't vote for killing babies, and they couldn't vote for sodomite marriage, and they could not vote for taking away people's rights and of the ability to spend themselves with the Second Amendment. And this is where the problem lies, because we're creating fence sitters. And I'm going to tell you something about a fence. The devil owns the fence. You got one side of each fence, and the devil is given that fence.
But we don't have a perfect way as a party, any party, to determine, okay, all right, does this guy share our beliefs and values? All right, so there has to be something. And I'm not saying, we could debate the number of times that, okay, you have to have voted in a Republican primary. Now, once again, with some of the Republicans we have, they're not really much better than Democrats. So even though they've always voted Republican, the things they have voted for or voted against, you couldn't really show much difference in them and a Democrat. But as far as your point of, okay, somebody changed their mind and now they want to be a Republican, they can always register, but now they can always go and register to vote, okay? But a lot of what the SEC's rules have to do with, can you be elected a county chair? Can you run as a representative? That's part of the issue, but yes, just voting is an issue as well. You're talking about just the individual voter? Well, okay, so here's the deal. If you decide all of a sudden that you're a Republican, that you can't be a Democrat anymore, and you vote, they're going to watch how you can see how they vote in the general. Well, wait a minute. You voted in this one. Now you're voting for this guy who's of the other party, And it might take, you may have to set it up over a few years. You may have to look and see, okay, wait a minute. They voted Republican this time. Then they voted Democrat. Then they voted Republican again. Well, okay, that person's an independent. They're not showing any consistency. And I'm going to tell you, I don't have the exact answer, but I understand the reason for trying to have something that shows that person has loyalty to the platform. And that's my big thing, is loyalty to the platform.
Well, that's the reason we need to close the primaries.
Well, I know, but if you,
we need to have people declare what they are.
Right, but you still have the thing of, okay, you close the primaries and you have to declare. So if they declare one time that they're a Republican, so if they go and they vote Democrat, then you got to have a way to say, hey, look, something's not right.
Well, they can't vote Democrat if you close the primaries, right, and they have registered as a Republican, or they can only vote in the Republican primary.
That's the way it should be.
They can't go and vote in Democrat.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. But there's nothing that enforces that right now. There's nothing that consistently.
We have open primaries.
I got it. We're not arguing about that. We both want to close the primaries. I think we differ on how you determine, and I'm telling you right now, the current system of saying, and this is for elected Republican officials. The current system is not perfect. I understand the reason that we want to have some standard, okay? It's a little harder when you get just to the individual voter. Well, you know what? I just can't vote for this party anymore. I'm going to switch, okay? And then there has to be, some way to verify that person. That person has to, I would think the local party officials, sit down and saying, okay, you're a Republican now? And there's got to be something. What I also don't want to see is, and I've seen this in the past, part of the criteria is for vouching for people, active in the party, which is very loosely defined what active in the party is, or contributed to the party. Okay, well, there's a lot of people that money's nothing to them. They got plenty of it. I don't want to see some bigwig just being able to shell out some money and, okay, now he's a bona fide Republican. I don't want to see that either. So. It's not a perfect system. I'll give you that. There's a lot of things. They got to close the primary. You're right. I think we both agree they have to close the primaries.
So right, and I know that, but you're talking about in order to be able to run for an office, we have to have some type of a mechanism to say, okay, you just can't become a Republican on day one and then day two turn around and run as a candidate.
Right. That's why you got to have a few years of showing that you have consistently voted Republican. That's the purpose for it. Is it a perfect system? No. If it's not a perfect system. Okay. Either way you look at it.
I have no problem with that. I mean, so we are 100% in agreement on that, Dave. Okay. Because in order to run for an office, it is a privilege. Right. It's not a right. The right is to vote. I don't want to take anybody's right to vote away, right, but to run for something, that's a privilege, not a right.
Oh, I agree. And I would say this, in the primaries, okay, if you're a private organization, this is just me talking, if you're a private organization, you run it how you want to run it. It shouldn't be the state setting those standards. It's a private entity. Why does the state have any say in how this private, as long as we're not doing anything criminal, why do they have any right to say how the party is ran? So that's
I agree 1,000% with that.
Now I want to bring up something because I mentioned platform. The state SEC had to do, they did their own platform, and I haven't looked at it recently, but they did this after the RNC met in 2024. Because, the platform prior to that, I think, was from 2016 or 2016 or 2020. They made a lot of changes in 2024.
They did.
They watered down certain things.
They did.
You guys are tracking that? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Me and Brandon, we definitely saw that, and we're very disappointed, actually.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the things that they watered down a little bit.
Okay.
You want to lead?
No, well, we didn't like the way they watered down. They watered down several of the issues that we're big on. Even the even definition of marriage and different things like that. They started sliding on some of our core values.
Yep.
And they're trying to be more welcoming, and they're trying to bring more folks in, and they're trying to do this, and they're afraid they're gonna
offend.
Yeah. You know, in this last election cycle, what I heard a lot was, well, we're going to lose a lot of the female vote over a women's right to choose to have an abortion. That was a big issue. And so we've seen a lot of these things start coming in. And what we're concerned about is we're going to see a platform that's going to come forward that's going to be okay with transgender in sports and different things like that. And we're not going to take a hard line on our core values. And that was a chipping away. And you're talking about our platform. We had actually, I was the chairman at the time, but we had actually printed out the platform, and we had school board members running for school board. We had 5 seats open that year in 2024, coming up before they changed the platform. We actually printed it out, gave it to all of the candidates that were running as a Republican, and in our meeting in front of everyone, we gave them a copy of the platform and said, here's your platform. You're running as a Republican. I said this, I'm giving it to you in public. And if you don't follow it, I'm going to call you out on it in public. So the platform is a big deal. And I think the RNC platform that national platform is huge. I hear a lot of counties talking about, well, we need a little county platform. That, I'm just going to tell you, that just doesn't move anything. It makes somebody feel better and you get the warm and fuzzies from it. But that national platform is a big deal, and we have got to get to work on our platform as well, or we're going to see a platform we're not going to embrace, and then we're going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, it's going to look like the Democrat platform.
Yeah, well, and I think there's some of them that aren't far from that, and I'm glad to see that our SEC did say because they pointed out a lot of the same things. They did not like the way it was watered down, and so they put a lot of those things back in there. And of course, that's our state platform, and right. I think we need to hold people accountable to that. But so do you guys know who was responsible for changing that platform? Who pushed the changes in that platform?
I mean, you got to put it to the top. I mean, it was Trump.
Okay. But he used somebody to do that. Who was the spokesman he sent out there? Do you know who it was?
No, who was it?
My understanding, and I wasn't there. I didn't go. Yeah, I don't do the RNC convention, but my understanding, and obviously it came from Trump. But my understanding is that Marsha Blackburn was the one that pushed these changes at the convention. That's my understanding. Okay, and if that's not accurate, somebody out there can tell me. Now, if somebody out there is going to say, "But Trump told her to," well, okay, yeah, we know Trump's not great on everything. He's good on some things, but we know he likes to compromise with certain things. So but I think that's a big issue. I think that's a big issue down the line. We just keep chipping away and watering it. Next thing you know, what's the difference in us and the Dems? I mean, we're going to be welcoming to the socialist? Is that next?
Right.
I think where that stems from a lot is the Republicans had the term, we're going to hold our nose and vote for years. And I started looking at that years ago, and my feeling on that is we had to get to work at home. We had to get to work in our counties and start producing better candidates. We had to start looking, and even right now in Lawrence County, we're having discussion behind the scenes on who we're going to have running against some of our Democrats that are sitting in office right now in different positions. And we're taking a look at some that ran as independents and how their voting record looks in our county commission and different ones in city council. We've got big elections coming through next year. So where we started really sliding is you walk up to the machine, the voting machine that is, and it's like you're walking up to a vending machine, and you've got Pepsi and you've got Diet Pepsi. One just has a little more sugar in it. That's the difference. And so that happens to us on a lot of candidates when we don't have a ton of selection.
Right.
We have got to get to work in the Republican Party's job. And I think probably what needs to be defined as much as what our beliefs is the Republican Party's job and what their structure is and what they can be utilized as a tool for. And what we're doing in Lawrence County is we want to create a strong party that has a drawing effect for better candidates so that we can get better candidates on that ballot. That's what we're pushing for. And I think the watered down that we're seeing across the board, I think even the fact that we can't get the primaries closed, I think all those things come from the basic foundation that we're not getting good candidates, and I blame us. I blame our friends and our neighbors. I take responsibility for that, If I don't have anyone good to vote for and I'm holding my nose and I'm having to vote, that's my fault.
Yep.
We've got to go out and we've got to push people. And we've got to say to our neighbors, hey, you would make a great county commissioner. You would make a great school board member, and get them in an office and get them elected and get behind them. A lot of people will run for office if they get somebody pushing them and behind them that will give them that foundation for them to go. And we can be the springboard to help make that happen. And we're not utilizing our power.
The problem is, Dave, and what I found out, and Brandon, I think you'll agree with me on this, the best candidates are the ones that don't want to run. They're the ones that have to be convinced to run. The ones that actually come out and say, oh, I'm going to run. I want to run for this.
Yeah, be careful.
Those are the ones I kind of worry about.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason we got involved, Dave, people probably don't know us. We've been called every kind of name that you can imagine. I've had people say that we were all kinds of different. They've named us everything, from rhinos to zebras. But the thing
well, you're
is,
definitely not rhinos.
We got involved.
I'm just telling you what we were called. We were called by an SEC member rhinos because of our reorganization.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But the reason we
it was on your Tennessee Substack, Dave. James Barth pulled it out and sent it to me.
Well, here's the reason we got involved is because when COVID came along and we were faced with COVID, we watched our legislators, we watched our elected officials. People want to call them leaders. They're not leaders. They're elected officials.
Right.
We watched them cave to pressure and absolutely become dictators and Nazis. And when we saw
bureaucrats
that,
are one bit. Yeah, wasn't even the elected officials.
Exactly right.
It was they put it off on the bureaucrats in order to come in and make this crap happen.
So I will tell you, our goal, even Tuesday night when you were at that event, our goal has been to create a venue that brings in our candidates and those who are elected officials and get them to the microphone. And I'm going to use a biblical scripture. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. You get them to the microphone, you're talking about today. You're naming names of different people that were up there speaking. And when they started talking, and the ones you're talking about, the Tom Davises and the Monty Fritz, the different ones that people were like really fired up about, it was when they spoke for 3 minutes. So I want your county party chairman to hear this. That was a 3-minute speech, and it was on a timer. These individuals, you saw me, Dave. I walk out on the side of the stage and let them know, hey, your 3 minutes is up. They couldn't believe it. But in 3 minutes, they were gaining the support of the entire room. This is a big deal, and our county parties have got to get strong enough to where they can get these folks in front of the microphone. And it's our goal that we have a town hall or debate with Marsha Blackburn and John Rose, and we want to create it fair. You don't have to make something unfair. It doesn't have to be slanted. Get them in front of the microphone.
No, they got records.
That's right.
Their records are enough to convict them.
Most elected officials are just not great speakers anyways. I mean, I can take NyQuil or listen to one of those speeches. Either one will help me sleep at night. But I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But we've got to create the venue. And so part of that, what we've been working to do is create that venue to get better candidates that would be willing to run, because what we're now going to do, we're now pushing to our 4th year into this and being serious at work. What we want to do in this next upcoming election cycle in our county and in our state races is we want to be able to give them the support they're going to need to get them in office. And we're going to go out and we're actually going to be knocking on people's doors, not asking for their vote. We're going to be asking for them to run.
That's right. Can you believe that? The first time we ever went to a Republican meeting was like in May or June of 2022.
That's right.
Wow.
Little more than 3 years ago.
Yeah. Regardless of what election you're talking, whether you're talking the governor's race, state house race, state senate, the U.S. rep, the biggest problem is the uns. I call them the uns, and there's 2 categories of uns. They're the unprincipled, okay? That's Democrats and a good chunk of the reptiles that hang out in the Republican Party that slither through the halls of Nashville, or the Capitol there in Nashville. And then you have the other uns, and that's the uninformed. And, that's the vote that you have to somehow get, because the unprincipled, we already know where they're going to go. But the uninformed, they have the most power because they are the majority. And
and
they know what really motivates them is to name recognition. Name recognition, and a lot of them, okay, well, hey, so-and-so endorsed this person. They must be good. They have no clue what that person has done, good, bad, or ugly, but because somebody that they like or respect endorsed them, oh, that's got to be the guy. Or, hey, I recognize this name. I don't know this name. And, oh, by the way, I don't have a clue what's been going on, especially at state level, because that's another problem. Most people only pay attention to the federal. Well, if you're only paying attention to the federal,
guilty.
Yeah, and that's a problem. That is a serious problem. But the uns, we have to reach the uns somehow to get them educated to a better degree than what they are.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
I'll tell you why do people vote? What's the number one reason someone's going to go vote? It's for self-gain. So you'll see people, we accuse the Democrats all the time, the liberals, of, oh, they're going to go vote for themselves, another freebie somehow, another welfare. We see that.
Yeah.
Well, what do we see on the conservative side? We go out and we vote, Lawrence and I, and even you, Dave, we vote for self-gain of freedom, of liberty, of protecting our rights. If you want to reach the uninformed voter, inform them of their self-gain when they go vote. That will be the reason that drives them to the polls. If they don't understand what they have to gain, forget about what they're going to lose. I think the Republicans come in too many times going, oh, you're going to lose this or you're going to lose that. Democrats do it too. They're like, oh, if Trump passes this, you're going to lose Medicaid or Medicare. Yeah. Talking trash. That's trash talk. Go show people what they have to gain, and you'll get your uninformed voters.
Yep, absolutely.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Well, and hey, with an organization like you guys got, you can certainly at least do that in Lawrence County, and you can, hopefully that'll be contagious to other counties, at least the other counties around you. But I'll tell you what, guys, I mean, Stewart County's got our Reagan Day coming up September 11th. I expect to see both of you there, by the way. That's on Thursday night from 6 to 8.
We're already committed.
Okay.
We're already committed to one. We can't do two at one time.
Huh?
You're in Lewis County the same night.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about that. Anyway.
Okay.
That's September 11th. Anyway, and we'll have that ad on Monday.
Okay.
But I'm like, you know what? I know we're going to do the best with ours, but I'm thinking with this venue, I mean, if we have half the number of people show up that you guys had, and granted the venue's a lot different, it's not as nice, but it's what we got. But I'm like, these guys are smoking it. And I'm going to say this, other than maybe Williamson County, Wilson County, maybe Knox County, I doubt there's another county that put on as good an event as you guys did. And I'm sure you raked in some dough. I don't know what you made, but I'm sure you raked in some dough comparable
$5 or $10.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Put some zeros behind that. So, but it was a great event, and I enjoyed it, and looking forward to what you do next year. We do have the link from that event, so if you want to go check it out, you can hear everybody. Like I say, it's good. Monty Fritz is on there at 47:55 into the video, but there's some other good speakers as well. You can listen to it for yourself, and I think you'll enjoy it. You guys have any other upcoming events you want to talk about?
Well, I do. I do want to do this. Can you give a shout out to who did the video for us? I think is very important.
You mean Keystone?
No, who did our video, which was the radio station.
When the radio station did, Charlotte down at the radio station, and our local radio station, we can't brag on them enough. WDXC, WLX. They have been such a promoter of free speech in our community, and I look forward to working with them in the upcoming election cycle. So
they've been very supportive of us, Dave. When we were on the radio, we actually got the whole radio station. Brandon and I did by ourselves. We got the whole radio station kicked off for 2 weeks off of YouTube and Facebook.
I think it was more Lawrence's fault than it was mine.
It probably was. But
good job. Good job. When are you coming back on?
Well, we're talking about it. But can I tell you something about that radio station, though?
Sure.
They never said a word to us. I mean, we didn't just get our show kicked off. We got the whole radio station kicked off.
What did you say?
And
What did
I have no idea.
I can tell you exactly.
Well, there's a couple. Well, we got him kicked off twice. So.
We had a local doctor that had treated 2,800 patients during COVID, and not one of his patients died. And he treated every COVID patient as just textbook pneumonia, and every one of his patients lived. He said that on our show. We had it on Facebook. Bam, banned the entire radio station for a week with a warning.
No,
just
2
because
weeks.
He said
no, 2 weeks.
Just because he said that. And but he is a beloved local doctor in the area, and every show said, we support you guys. You're on here telling the truth.
Wow, that's great. That is great.
And then we have an event coming up in Lawrence County that's near and dear to our heart. It's one of our local elected officials. His name's Tommy Lee Kidd, and he has a plan called Abigail's Plan, and he does so much good for our community. I'm going to tell you something. This dude, if he ran for anything, he would win. I mean, he could probably run for president and win. He's that beloved by people that know him. But he has an event coming up under Abigail's Plan that's called Bulls and Barrels, and it's coming up this Saturday.
Okay.
Rain or shine, and it is a real rodeo event. It turned into just a charity, but not only now is it just a charity, but it is a professional rodeo event now. Adults are $15 admission, kids are $10, 4 and under free parking. They got food. They have music by John Ezel and the Fried Cornbread Band. I'd like to go to that one. You hear that band played with that name. And Tommy Lee said, please tell everyone to come early and come hungry. He said pony rides and mechanical bulls. John Ezel and the Fried Cornbread Band are awesome. $15 adults, $10 children, and under 4 free with free parking. Here in Lawrence, it's going to be in Lawrenceburg at the fairgrounds, and gates open at 5 p.m. It's a very good charity.
Okay,
does
sounds
a lot
like
of good work.
Sounds like it. Now you got a GOP meeting coming up as well, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we got one coming up on Tuesday. We always have our GOP event the 4th Tuesday of the month at the courthouse. Okay. And I believe that's where all of our events I would encourage all GOPs to have their events at the courthouse, because the courthouse is our house. It is ours. And so we have it at the courthouse 4th Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. And we're having a very special guest, almost to your caliber, Dave, as far as guests, but he is a great guest, and that's Gary Humble of Tennessee Stance.
Yeah, he does good work.
Good work. And I would tell everybody they need to come to this, because I think Gary may be saying some things that he is not put out on the internet or put out on anywhere else.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that could be, but that should be interesting. So.
Probably some good stuff about Lawrence.
Well, then there would be nothing said then.
Okay. Well, hey, I want to get you guys back on. We try to do some things jointly in the not distant future. Certainly, during the session. So sure. we can talk about that offline some. Well, hey, thanks for being with us, and thanks for what you do. You guys did a great job the other night. You do a great job in general with the GOP there in your county. I want to
Dave, can I make one point real quick?
Sure.
Can you believe that we got Paige Wally up on the stage? Not only did he donate an AR-15, but he's up there helping us auction it off.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. You had some nice weapons there. I just couldn't afford any of them, but they were nice. So, well, I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell, so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Jonathan and Mary for their financial support for the month of July and August. We really appreciate it. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please subscribe and listen and share with your friends. Check out our audio podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and X. Look out for Dave's Rays, 2-minute audio commentaries on current events. We are making some changes to that, and some will be written and posted on the site. On August 28th, Williamson and Murray County are going to do a joint event. They're going to call it a Mix and Mingle with special guest Clean Comic Brad Stein. There will also be a surprise special guest. This includes a spaghetti dinner. This will be from 6 to 8 at the UAW Hall, 125 Stephen P. Yokich Parkway in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Go to murraytngop.com for tickets. Tennessee Fire Association will have its yearly fundraiser Saturday, September 6th, beginning at 9 a.m. at the Farm Bureau Export Center / the James E. Ward Agriculture Center, 945 East Batter Parkway, Lebanon, Tennessee. Guest speaker is General Michael Flynn. Representative Rose will be there as well. There will be vendors galore, an auction plus lunch. And there's been an addition to the update that you need to know about, or the lineup that you need to know about. Brett Rogers, author of the book The Goal is to Win, will be there and will give a special 1 hour training from 9:30 to 10:30 on effective campaigning. Heard him speak a few weeks ago, and it's the best political training that I've ever seen. So it's definitely worth checking out. Take advantage of this. It's a great event. Hope to see you there. Tickets are $100. Tables of 6 are $750, but you're also placed closer to the stage. No promise of tickets if you wait till the day of. Go to tfalac.org for tickets and get yours now. And once again, the keynote speaker is General Michael Flynn. Our guest next Monday, the 25th, will be State Rep, now 7th District candidate, Gino Bolso. He also has a pretty good legislative record and has impressed many on the trail so far with his knowledge of the Constitution and his presentation. On Thursday, we'll have the attorney for Defend Arlington, Kirk Lyons, here to fill us in on the latest developments on the Reconciliation Monument and some possible shenanigans in the upcoming NDAA, that's the National Defense Authorization Act, to be aware of. Hope you'll join us then. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.